This is a presentation of OPC Systems symbols. The symbols are a library of graphic objects that are available free for use with all your OPC Systems applications. Let's take a look at the symbols library. As you can see, we have several different folders here divided out by type: elbows, motors, pumps, pipes, tanks, T's, and valves. Let's take a look in the elbows folder. You'll see also that they're subdivided by size. Let's take a look at the medium folder, and as you can see, we have different types of elbows ranging from top left, top right, bottom right, in 5 different colors: blue, gray, green, red, and yellow. The same is true for the other libraries. All of the symbols come in 5 different colors. Let's go back and take a look at the motors. Here we can see we have the same motor in different orientation, left and right, in the same 5 colors. Go back and look at the tanks. We can see we have various shapes and sizes of tanks, and also in the same 5 colors. And let's take one more quick look at pumps. Again, we have 2 different types of pumps here, and also in the same 5 colors. Let's build a sample application using the symbols and Microsoft Expressions Blend. We're going to open up Expressions Blend 4, and we're going to open a new project. And we'll just call this Symbols. Click OK. We are presented with a new form in the main window. Notice under References, we've already added the reference to our OPC WPF DLL. This can be located in your Program Files directory under Open Automation Software opcsystems.net. To add a reference, simply right-click on the reference and select Add Reference, and then browse to the reference you wish to add. Let's add a couple folders for our graphics. Right-click on the project name Symbols and click Add New Folder. Let's call this folder Graphics. Let's also right-click on that again and add another new folder. Let's name this folder Tanks, and right-click on Graphics again and add another new folder. Call that Valves. Now that we've created our graphics folders, let's add the graphics to the folders. This can be accomplished by simply dragging and dropping the graphics onto the folder you want them to reside in. Now that we've added the graphics to our application, let's close out our folder and go to our main window. We can change the resolution of our window here in the Layout panel. Let's change that to 1024 by 768. This is a common resolution for applications to run in. Another thing that we can do is we can change our layout route. We're going to change the type of the layout route to a view box. This will allow us to resize our application when in runtime, and all of our objects within our application will automatically resize with it. While in development, let's change the appearance stretch property of view box to none. This will allow us to edit our application without having the stretch already applied to it. We will change that back when we switch into runtime. With the layout route selected, let's add a grid to the layout route. You'll see the grid over here on the left hand side. Double click and that adds a grid into our layout route. You can see that it's in the layout route by the tree view here. Go up to our selection button and then let's resize that to fit within our window size. Now that we have our grid added, let's add an OPC image item. Select the Assets button and type OPC in the search box. We now see our OPC items in our list. Select the OPC image. That'll appear right below our Asset tool, and let's double click to add an OPC image item to our window. Select the Selection tool again and resize. Let's make this fairly large and move it down just a little bit. Now let's go to the Common Properties and select the source. We're going to select the gray tank for the source. Now let's resize our image control to fit our tank. Now we can copy and paste that tank to create a new tank. Press Ctrl C and Ctrl V. We can now grab that new tank and slide it off to the right hand side. Notice that we have lines that show us that we are lined up with our original object. Let's add another image object. Use our select tool and drag our image object down. And then let's select its source. Common properties, source, and let's select elbow, gray, bottom, right. Let's resize that. Slide it up and underneath our tank. Then let's select the layout and change its height and width to 45. Reposition it, and then let's copy by pressing Ctrl C and paste by pressing Ctrl V. Move that to our right tank, and then let's learn how to transform that. We will select Transform, Flip, and Flip X-axis. Now reposition. Let's add a couple pipes. Select the OPC image control again, double click, select your selection tool, slide that down, and then let's make that a little smaller, and let's set its source to gray pipe, horizontal. Now let's change its stretch control to fill. Grab your pipe, slide it over, and resize that a little bit. Add it onto your elbow and position. Now let's select our elbow again and Ctrl C, Ctrl V for copy and paste, reposition, and then let's change its transform by rotation. Change its angle to 180 degrees and reposition it. Now let's copy and paste our pipe. Ctrl C, Ctrl V, slide it down, rotate it, and place it underneath our elbow. I'm now going to quickly add the remaining pipes to our window. Now let's add a pump to our system. Again, we'll use the OPC Systems image control. Drop the image control on the screen. Select its source. Let's go with pump gray left. Use our selection tool and resize the pump. Let's add an elbow, and we'll just copy and paste this elbow and pipe. Reposition them. Now let's add motors and pumps to our systems. This time, instead of using the OPC image control, we're going to use the OPC Systems button. Select the button from the Assets library. Now we can drag and drop or paint buttons onto our screen. Let's add one here, and let's copy and paste that. Slide it over here. Let's add one for our motor, and let's resize that. And let's add two more for drain valves. Now let's select all of our buttons. Press the Control key and click on each button. Let's go to the common properties of the button and remove the content, which would be the label on the button. Select that and press Delete, and then Enter. Now we have blank buttons. Now let's add some images to our application to use as brush resources in our buttons. Go up to Graphics and select Motors. Click on Motor Gray left and then double click to add it to our application. In the Tools menu, select Make Brush Resource, Make Image Brush Resource, And let's give that a name of Brush Motor Gray. And select OK. Let's do the same thing for the green, the red, and the yellow. Then let's delete those images from our window. Now let's add some valves. Let's select the valve gray, make into brush resource, make image brush resource. Do the same thing for valve green and valve red and valve yellow. And delete those images also. Now select the button that we've defined for the motor and scroll up to the brushes and select background. On the toolbar, select the tab for brush resources and select brush motor gray. Now let's resize that and send it to the background by selecting Object, Order, Send to Back. Now that we know how to use brush resources, I'm going to fill in the brush resources for the background of our remaining buttons. Now let's add the images to our buttons that will be used to represent the various states. Select the first valve, press Ctrl, and then select the other three valves. In Brush Background True, select, and then select the Brush Resources and Brush Valve Green. At Background False, Brush Resources, Brush Valve Red, and then the Background Quality Bad, select Brush Resources, and Brush Valve Yellow. Let's do the same thing for our motor. Select the motor, Background 1 True, Brush Resources, Brush Motor Green, Background False, Brush Resources, Brush Motor Red, Background Quality Bad, Brush Resources, Brush Motor Yellow. Now let's add the tags that will be used to generate these states. So on the background 01 tag, select the Browse button. That's the little down arrow to the right of the field. Select Local, scroll down to Tanks, expand that group, then select Pump Value. Select OK. Now the pump value will control the display of the images on our pump button. Let's do the same for the valves. Tank 1 Drain Valve, select Background Tag 1. Browse Tanks and expand the Tank 1 group and select the drain valve value. The fill valve for Tank 1, and let's do Tank 2. This will be the fill valve and the drain valve for Tank 2. Now we'll be able to see the images change when those values change. Let's do one more thing for each one of those. I'm going to copy the tank drain valve value, and we're going to go to Set Value OPC Systems, and I'm going to paste that into our Set Value tag. Notice that we have Set Value Boolean value set to toggle. You can also select Set to False or any of the other options. We'll leave that at toggle value. Let's do the same thing for our other valves. Now let's set our motor. Now let's run our application and see how it looks. We see all of our valves are animated and our motor. Let's select the motor. It seems to have turned green for us by changing the state, but the button is blue and flashing. This will happen with any button that's selected, but we can fix that. Let's go back and take a look at that. What we have observed is normal behavior for a WPF button, but we're going to change the template so we don't get that flashing when we select the button. So let's go to our button, select the button, and right click. Select Edit Template and edit a copy. Keep the button style the same. Select OK. We'll notice now that with our breadcrumb explorer here, we are inside of the template. With the template selected, select your button again, and underneath the miscellaneous, we will reset the mouse over and the render pressed property. Also, select triggers and delete the Is Keyboard Focus trigger by selecting that and pressing delete. Now let's go back to our objects and timeline and press the up arrow to return to our window. We now have a new style created, and we can apply that to our other buttons. Select a button, right-click, select Edit Template, Apply Resource, and OPC WPF Button Style 1. Do that to the remaining buttons. Now let's run our application again and see how that's looking. Notice now when we hover over a button, we're not getting that blue flashing, or when we select it. We can see when we select a button, we're changing the state of the button and our tag in the background. Let's close our application and animate our pipes. Now let's set the images that we will use for the animation of our pipes. Let's select all the pipes. Select your first pipe by clicking on it, and then press Shift and select the remaining pipes on your screen. Now let's select the source bag quality image. Originally all these pipes were horizontal pipes, so we can use the same image over again. For the bag quality, let's select the pipe yellow horizontal. For the source image for 0 value, let's select pipe gray horizontal. And for our source image for value of 1, let's select the pipe blue horizontal. We will want to individually set the source tag for the ones that are associated with the motor and each of the valves. So let's deselect the pipes and select the pipes that are associated with the pump motor. Now let's set the source tag to tankspump.value. I will set the remaining source values for the fill valves on each of the tanks and the drain valves on each of the tanks. Now we will need to set the source images for our elbows, the T, and the pump itself. Let's start with the elbows. Select the first elbow and Control-click the remaining elbows. Set the bag quality image, elbow yellow, bottom right. Again, since we used one elbow and rotated them into position, we will use the same elbow in our source images. Source image for value of 0, elbow gray, bottom right. Source image for value of 1, elbow blue, bottom right. We'll need to again set the source tag based on what's controlling the image. So for instance, the elbows that are related to the fill valve will be controlled by the fill valve. I have set up our remaining tags and images for the rest of our system. Let's run the application and see how it looks now. Notice that our pump and valves are all shut off. Let's turn the pump on by clicking on it, and our pipes turn blue. Let's open the fill valve to our tank 1. Those pipes turn blue, and if we open the drain valve from tank 1, we will see the pipes turn blue there. Likewise, the same goes for tank 2. Fill valve, drain valve. Now let's close out our application and add a level to our tanks. Go to our Assets bar and select OPC WPF Label. Let's draw that right on top of our tank. Go to our Selection tool. We now have our label selected, and scroll up to our brushes. Let's give that a background and let's make that semi-transparent. Select a solid image brush and the color white. And then let's change our alpha to about 65%. Scroll down to Content, OPC Systems, and select the Content tag. Select Browse, scroll to our Tanks group, expand that, select Tank 1, and let's select Level. Select the value and select OK. Now let's change the content for the format of float. Give that a 1 decimal place and a value of feet. Let's run our project again. Now we see we have 0 feet in our tank. Let's close the drain valve, and we can see that the value is now climbing. Let's go back and make a couple more changes to our level. Let's change the font size under Text and Font Size. Let's change that to 12 point and make it bold. Make our label just a little bit bigger, center that in our tank, and run our project again. That looks better. Now let's copy that label and move it over to our tank 2. And let's change our content tag to tanks tank 2. Now let's animate our tanks on high level. Select the first tank and then select the second tank. Go to Common Properties, OPC Systems. And then let's select our source images here. Scroll down. We have selected the source bag quality image, and that will be tank 1 yellow front. Source image of 0 will be the tank 1 gray front. And the source image 01 will be tank 1 red front. Now let's deselect and select tank 1 again. And then let's set our source tag to tank 1 level alarm status high high. Now let's set our tank 2 source tag to tank 2 level alarm status high high. Now let's run our application. Let's close our drain valves and turn on the pump. Now our level will climb. Notice our tanks turned red when they reached the high high limit. Open our drain valves, and now the tanks will turn gray again when they fall below the high high limit. But what if we wanted to alarm on both the high high and low low? We have no option for that here. That's because we are using the image control. Another useful control that we can use would be the OPC WPF Border Control. Let's change tank 1 so that we're using the border control. Add an OPC WPF Border Control to our screen. And let's select tank 1. And let's remove that image control from our screen. Now we'll need to add those images to brushes. So let's go back and select our tanks. And let's select tank gray. Double click. Make an image brush resource for tank 1, and we'll call that brush tank 1 gray. Let's do the same for the red and yellow. Now let's delete those images from our window. Select them and press delete. Now let's go to our OPC WPF Border Control. Select the border brush and set that to no brush. Select the background brush and select brush resources. Select our brush tank 1 gray. And now we see our tank on the screen again. Let's set that here and resize it. Now we have our tank back. But now we also have several other options that we can use to animate this tank. Scroll down to the brushes, OPC Systems. Select the background 01 tag. We'll set that to tanks tank 1 level alarm status high high. Now let's select the background 02 tag. We'll set that to tanks tank 1 level alarm status low. Now let's set our images. Background image 01 true. Select brush resources, and let's use the brush tank 1 red, and then background 02 tag, brush resources, brush tank 1 blue. Now for our faults tag, tank resources, brush tank 1 gray. And for bag quality, brush resources, brush tank 1 yellow. So let's set the tank to background. Select object, order, send to back. Now we have our tank level shown again. Now we're ready to run our project again. Select project and run project. Okay, our tank is empty now and it's blue, indicating a low level alarm. Let's close the drain valve. Our pump is on and our fill valve is open. Notice that the tank turned gray when it went above the low level alarm, and when we reach the high level alarm, the tank will turn red. Now we've reached our high level alarm, let's open the drain valve. And as the tank drops, it will turn gray again once it falls below the high level alarm. Let's add one last finishing touch to our application before we're done. I've added a background image that I created using Blender 3D to our graphics folder. Let's use that for a background for our project. Double click on the background image, and then let's resize that to fit within the window. Now let's send that to the background, object, order, and send to back. One more thing to do is reposition our objects that are on the screen already. So select the OPC WPF border that's right below our background image, and then Shift Select to select all the other items on our window. Now let's move those items down so they appear in order. And let's resize this pipe and move our elbow back up into place. When we started our application, we set our layout route to a view box. So now let's go and set the layout appearance and the stretch behavior of this view box. So go to our appearance properties and select stretch. And let's change that to uniform. Now we'll get to see the effects of the view box. Run our application one more time. Now we can see our application was originally set at 1024 by 768. But we can also take our application and, using the grip handles, shrink that down. And all of our objects remain proportional to the size of the screen. We can also make it take up the entire screen if we like. This is how the view box makes our application much more useful to be run on various screen resolutions other than just 1024 by 768. This completes the presentation of OPC system symbols in WPF. For more information on OPC systems, products, and features, please visit www.opcsystems.com.